What's going on, everybody? Welcome in Wager Alarm live stream. It's the Friday Night Ticket, baby. That's right. We had some time off for the holidays throughout the week, so we apologize to all of you if you missed us on Tuesday, but we tried to make as many announcements as possible. But you know what? Listen, that's then. This is now. Friday night. We got 7 picks for the Golden Nugget. We got 5 picks for the Westgate Super Contest. Lots of stuff going on. Very oddball point spreads in the NFL. But, hey, we can make our way through it. We can definitely work around it. Craig, how are you? Good to see you again. I've missed you, Craig.
Missed you too. We were here last Friday night giving out picks. And, of course, Tuesday night and Wednesday was the Jewish holiday. And so I atoned for my picks last week on Yom Kippur. It was obviously the worst week that we've had in both college and pro since we've started doing this in 2 years. But I've been at this a long time, and I always say the same thing. 1 week has nothing to do with the next in terms of sports wagering. You can't get out of your comfort zone. You can't start changing things around and doing things differently. And I think as we look at the lines this week, we kind of stay true to a lot of the things that we've done throughout the season. So sometimes when the season goes sideways, you got to go the other way. College has obviously been tougher this year for me than it was last year. There's no question about that. But I do feel good about this week's picks for sure. And we're still overall doing fine in these contests. Our goal at the end of the season is obviously to cash, but if not, is to be somewhere in that 55% range, which I believe we will be at the end of the season. So we'll get back on it today. We still have a number of great weeks left in college football. I would say that last week was disappointing on a number of levels, just because in general, a lot of the games weren't close. There was only one college game that I thought that we really had a chance to win, and that was Louisiana Monroe, who picked off very late in the game, and they didn't end up pulling it out. That was one of the ones that I liked, and unfortunately it didn't come in. But in terms of the NFL, again, a lot of the games came down to 1 possession or 2 possessions. I don't really get too burnt up about that, and we'll dive into those this week. We have some favorites, we have some underdogs, and ironically, last week we almost made a change of a pick to go against one team, and we're going to do that this week. I think that was the right call last week, and indeed it will be a good call again this week. And as you can see, my phones are ringing off the hook to get those picks. So we'll knock them out here on the show.
If it's for me, I'm not here. All right.
No, he's not here.
There you go.
I said you weren't there.
I appreciate that. All right. Where do we want to start? Let's start with the college world right now. I'm going to start off with a pick that I really like. I dug a little deep into this. So looking at that Texas Tech game against Baylor, and whereas we were off on the Kansas State and basically was a pick'em game. It was a
we took Kansas State against Baylor.
1 point.
Kansas State did not show up at all.
No, not at all. But
at all.
There's something in the process. There's something in the research that led us to Baylor, or going against Baylor. And now I'm kind of looking at that as well here with Texas Tech. And I found some really good numbers backing that, talking about a team that is 5-0, maybe shouldn't be 5-0, or maybe we didn't think they should be 5-0 at this point right now. But here you go. 5-0 teams coming off double digit against the spread wins, which they did, and that are favored for the next game, 47-76 the following week. Since 1980, that's the record. Now,
that's a lot.
That is a lot. Now, these teams also, when they're facing a conference opponent that's coming off of a win, which Texas Tech is, 15-32-2 against the spread.
Wow.
So I look at that. I look at a number of things about Texas Tech, about their team, about Baylor. And I got to tell you, listen, I think the 11 points is probably a little bit inflated. I wouldn't be surprised if Baylor wins this game, but I think that if they do win this game, it's by a touchdown or less. I think Texas Tech can win this one outright, but if not, I mean, you're talking about a really close game.
Yeah, and look, Matt Rule's done some nice things at Baylor for sure. I wasn't overly impressed with the way they played last week, but it was more an indictment for me on Kansas State, who's got off to such a really nice start. They won that game earlier in the season against Mississippi State. I thought it would work again for us, and it did not last week. So certainly we'll take that pick and hopefully it wins. It sounds certainly good.
I like that. And my next one here, how about Fresno State going up against Air Force? You know how I like playing around with the military academies. Fresno State coming off of a bye week for themselves. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this Air Force triple option offense. Oh, lo and behold, Fresno State holding opponents to fewer than 110 rushing yards per game thus far. So they've not only had 2 weeks to prepare for this, they specialize in shutting down the run. They also happen to have quite a nice passing game, and there are no defensive backs for Air Force. They don't handle a high, fast-paced offense that spreads out the wide receivers and spreads the field. I look at this one here and I say Fresno State, 3.5-point underdog. Here's another team I think can win it outright.
Yeah, and Air Force's schedule just in general this season, like a lot of the military academies, they're going to play a couple of tough games during the season. They haven't shown anything. They beat Colgate. Obviously, that's like a nothing win. Colorado's one of the worst teams in the country. They beat them 30-23. They beat San Jose State, another nothing team, by 17. The only games that were tough that they played in, Boise State and Navy, they ended up losing. And Fresno State is not a bad football team. So it just seems to me that at this case this season, they lost their first 2 games. They're on a 2-game winning streak, although not great teams that they have faced in the wins against New Mexico State and Sacramento State. But look, they lost by 1 point to Minnesota. They lost only by 8 to USC. And certainly it would seem that Fresno State has the advantage. I would never go against one of those triple option rushing teams if it was a 1 week scenario, but having 2 weeks to prepare for one team certainly should give them a better idea as to what they are. And also, in any scenario when you're playing against the academies, if you go up big, it's very hard for them to come back. So early in the game, Fresno State takes a 10-0, 17-0 lead. That's pretty much a wrap for them. Wild game between, by the way, Air Force and Navy last week. Right. Crazy covering in that game. But, okay, so our second pick will be Fresno State against the spread. Minus 3.5, is it?
Fresno State is getting 3.5 of this.
Getting 3.5, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So okay. I'm digging on that. All right, next game here. Biggest point spread we've taken all season long. We're going with the Indiana Hoosiers, baby, taking on
this is it.
Those wacky Scarlet Knights from Rutgers. Now, this was a game that I was talking about last week, wanting to go to Maryland against Rutgers after they got their asses handed to them by Penn State the week before. We decided that it wasn't going to be the game. We were going to stick with the other guy. What was it? Iowa.
that was.
How are you in the red zone 72 times?
Oh and my gosh, that game was awful. Yeah, that was an awful game. Okay, so the deal with Rutgers is, look, it almost feels like a yearly occasion with them struggling, but they are really, really struggling. They fired their head coach, so they have a new one now. And then last week, at the beginning of the week, their quarterback and their running back pulled one of these deals like the kids did at Houston, where they basically said maybe it's best for us to just not play the rest of the season at redshirt and come back next year. So 2 of their best 3 players decided they're not going to play the rest of the year. And Rutgers didn't have a great offense to begin with, so of course Maryland crushed them. This line opened up at 25. It moved quickly up to 28. It's now come back a little bit, 27, 27.5. Indiana, you have to wonder, okay, if you're going to lay 28 points, you got to have a team that's averaging more than 30 points a game, because you don't want to get stuck with not covering the number. Indiana does fit that bill. They're averaging 33 points a game. Obviously, their defense is not great, but it should be good enough, I think, to put up 40 on Rutgers. It's just a matter of how many points Rutgers scores. I don't see more than 7 to 10 in this one. Last 18 games for Rutgers is a road dog. They're 4-14 against the spread, which is one of the worst in all of college football. I just don't think that Rutgers shows up at all. What kind of message is it sending when 2 of your 3 best players have quit on your team, which is essentially what they did, although they said they'll stay and they'll be back next year. So we'll take Indiana minus the points, an early start time also for Rutgers, playing in Indiana on the Central Time Zone, basically 11 a.m. start for them. So our first play is taking Indiana, minus a lot of points.
Didn't Houston win that game when everybody quit on them? And
they did come back and win.
Damn it.
They did come back and win the next game.
All right, next game here, we're going to the Pac-10. How about a little Arizona? You liking the Wildcats this week, Craig?
Pac-12, Arizona against Washington.
Pac-12 and whatever.
Pac-17. Okay, so Kevin Sumlin and Arizona, all of a sudden, it seems like they have some mojo here. And what's really interesting is that we're going back probably the last 5 or 10 years. The Washington Huskers are always in the mix for the national championship. They're always there, and they're basically out this year after losing last year to Stanford. They now have 2 losses, which for the first time in a long time you could look at. And so I'm not really sure what Washington's motivation is, honestly, at this point. Will they rebound after that loss to Stanford and with their back against the wall and fight for the rest of the season? Or do these kids just kind of realize that, there's almost no shot for them to get in? No 2-loss Pac-12 team is getting into the college football playoff. And I just can't get over that loss to Stanford last week. Stanford is having such a rough year. They're one of the worst teams in the Pac-12, and they lost that game. On the flip side, Arizona's won 4 games in a row. This matchup has always come down to the wire. The last 2 times these teams have played in Arizona, Washington won by 3, and then Washington won 4 years ago in overtime. So the games always seem to be close there. Arizona's offensive line is playing very well. They have one of the best dynamic players in all of college football in Khalil Tate. He came back last week. He missed 2 weeks ago. He came back last week, looked really good. So I do think that this is a good spot for Arizona getting points at home. And even if Washington wins, I don't think that they'll cover. I think this is a final possession type game. And what is Washington playing for at this point? I'm just not really sure. You could play the other side and say they'll be supremely motivated after coming off that loss to Stanford. I think that would be the case if they only had 1 loss, but already having 2, I think it's kind of deflating. I don't know how they get up for this one. So we'll take the road dog or the home dog,
home dog, yeah,
and take the Wildcats plus 6.5. We'll see if Arizona can win 5 games in a row. That'd be something.
Love it. Love it. All right. So we're only doing 4 college games this week. We've been doing 5 the last 2 weeks. Now we're going to go back to our 4. We got 3 pro games we want to look at here for the Golden Nugget. Before we do that, let me just give a shout out to our sponsors at Monkey Knife Fight. If you guys love fantasy sports, you should be playing on monkeyknifefight.com. It's the fastest growing daily fantasy site on the planet. Right now, you can join Fantasy Alarm in a $2,000 DFS contest this week where the winner will take home $100,000. First-time depositors also get 6 months free of the Fantasy Alarm Playbook Pro subscription and 100% deposit match up to $50 on Monkey Knife Fight. So play this week for your chance to win at $100,000 at fantasyalarm.com/monkey. That's fantasyalarm.com/monkey. Now, let's talk pro games here. The 3 that we're going to use for the Golden Nugget. One of them, you say this is your favorite game of the week. Favorite game of the week.
First time all season long. Last week, I lost my favorite game of the week. First time all season long. My favorite game was Dallas. And even though they did have a chance at some point in that game to cover, let's be honest, it was not the right side. The Packers was clearly the right side in that one. But yeah, my favorite game of the week this week will be the Rams against the San Francisco 49ers. And again, with these picks, you got to understand a lot of them are going to look completely wrong. This is the way that it works in the NFL. You have to have a very short memory. And as long as I've been at this, the scheduling quirk for this one is so bizarre, Howard. I don't get it. The Rams played on Thursday night. They have 10 days to get ready for the 49ers. 49ers play on Monday night and only have 6 days to get ready for the Rams. A very strange way that the schedule worked itself out. The line opened up at 4.5. It's now all the way down to 3. I know in some spots it's 3.5, like the contest plays that we're going to have. And simply put, Howard, 2 weeks ago, this line was Rams -7, maybe even more. But because of the way that San Francisco was played against the Browns, against the Bucs, against some teams that aren't very good, they've gotten a lot of credit. And I will give them credit because they are running the ball fantastic. And I think that they probably end up winning more games than people thought, 9 or 10 wins this season. But this still is the Rams. They still are at home. And this is the shortest line that you're going to get for the Rams at home against, I think, any team in the NFL. San Francisco got up in a big way for that game against the Browns on Monday night. A sold-out crowd, a 4-0 team going into the game. I completely understand it, but I think that this is a big overreaction. I think the Rams are still a much better team than the 49ers. And also, I'll say another thing about this game. I think that Todd Gurley's days of an elite running back are done. I don't mind at all the fact that they have these 2 other running backs playing for them this week in Malcolm Brown and Henderson. I think that could actually be a boost. Gurley, one of the great things about him, when games were close and the Rams were playing, Gurley would fake a handoff. Goff would dump it off to him. This guy would run 50 yards. He's not even catching the ball at all out of the backfield anymore. So to me, it's not a detriment at all not having them there. Now, maybe for pass blocking, that could be something a little bit different, and we'll have to see how that plays out. Boza clearly is one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, and that could give them problems. But San Francisco also has a couple of injuries to the offensive line. And so just kind of in closing here, again, I can't overreact too much to the NFL week to week. And I know for a fact 2 weeks ago, if you asked what the look-ahead line would be, Rams against the 49ers, you would have said, oh, Rams -7, Rams -8. This is just too big of an overreaction to a team that is good, but I don't know that they're great. I think Garoppolo makes some mistakes. I think the Rams win by a touchdown, and this one will take the Rams.
Well, we saw it a couple of weeks ago when the 49ers committed 5 turnovers in the first half. The Steelers, they covered the spread. They couldn't really capitalize very much on it, but they at least covered the spread in that game. You mentioned the injuries on the offensive line. George Kittle also questionable for the week. He's dealing with a groin issue. The problem with, for me, in looking at this one for the 49ers, I think the secondary is a little on the overrated side. I don't think they've been tested all that much. They don't have the offensive weapons. If the Rams clamp down on the on the ground game, well, then I don't really think the Niners have anything. Dante Pettis, Deebo Samuel, these guys aren't getting it done in the passing attack. And if you're taking your best weapon, and you're probably going to need to use them a little bit more for blocking and pass protection, then you are going to be able to release him into the secondary. I think that's an issue for the Niners as well. I like the call here. You said it was your favorite. I'm in on it. Rams -3. I'm perfectly fine with that one there. So that's our first pro game. Second game, I'm taking the Saints as with a point. I think this is easily a game that the Saints can win outright. I went with the Jags against the Panthers last week, and that one didn't happen. It got a little close at one point. I thought I might still be in it.
That wasn't a terrible pick. They had a chance, and in fact, they were on the 30-yard line of Carolina in the fourth quarter, and then Minshew fumbled. I mean, that was a game-changing play. We had a couple of those in a couple of the games last week. But yeah, I thought the Jaguars played well enough to beat Carolina last week. But look, if you're gonna let McCaffrey run for 80 and Bonifant run for 80, you're just
right. Well, so I'll take the Saints against the Jags. Jalen Ramsey's not going to play, which means that Michael Thomas can be running, like wildfire through the secondary there. So I dig this one. I like the way the Saints look, even without Drew Brees.
Yeah, and look, how can you go against the Saints with them winning every game like this? There's no question that Jacksonville is better with Minshew than anybody could have possibly thought. There's no doubt about that. But their defense showed some serious holes last week. Now, look, my opinion of this game, Howard, would be this. We have to put these lines in. And before I do any bet, I look at the injury report. If Kamara don't play in this game, I don't know that I would have the same opinion, because that is something that the Jaguars showed last week. They have a hard time stopping as those fast, elusive running backs. And Murray, we know, is not that guy. But I think that it is a good play getting the point. And this is one of those where you're not going to buck a trend. The trend is the Saints just keep winning and winning and winning no matter where it is, and winning with Teddy B. So we'll take the Saints plus the point.
Let the trend be your friend, Craig. Look at that. Just another mishism there for me. Last game here for the Nugget. Taking the Steelers +7. Another trip across country here where they are a touchdown underdog coming in against the Chargers, whose defense doesn't look all that good, whose offense kind of looks a little sputtering. They got Melvin Gordon back. It's not really doing much for them. They deal with a number of injuries in their receiving core here. Philip Rivers always prone to making mistakes. I like the addition of Minkah Fitzpatrick to this Pittsburgh secondary, and I think that's actually been a huge thing for them. Even with the pharmaceutical company of Devlin Rodgers under center, handing the ball off to James Conner, dump offs to Juju Smith-Schuster. I still think that the Steelers keep this one close enough. I think the Chargers are a team that just continuously shoots themselves in the foot, and I'll take advantage of that with the full 7 points here for the Nugget. It's only 6.5 in the Super Contest.
Yeah, and it won't be 6.5 by the time the game starts Sunday. In fact, we have 2 games here. I think that the lines will change significantly. Everyone is going to take Pittsburgh in this game, I think, by the time the game goes off, and that line will move down, because simply put, how can you ever take the Chargers as a favorite in any game? They almost never come through. The Chargers as a dog are always an excellent play, but as a favorite, as they showed last week against Denver, they're just really hard to trust. And to me, the Chargers have not shown. Now, they have the ability. They have Rivers, and they have Gordon, and they have Eckler. And those receivers on the outside, you would think at some point the Chargers would put a 50 spot or a 40 spot on someone with that offense. They just haven't shown it at all. And Denver showed up to play against them last week. We know the Chargers do not have a great home field advantage. The quarterback for the Steelers, of course, that is a very big wild card in this game. But I thought he showed enough last week. I went back. I looked at his preseason numbers. Not bad as well. We're only looking for a cover here. We're not necessarily worried about the win. And I think we are getting value here. My guess is that Sunday night when the game goes off, that the Chargers will be maybe 5.5 or 6-point favorites, and we're getting a lot more than that. So you always want to kind of shoot for value, and love taking underdogs, of course, in the NFL. Last week, what happened when there was a big underdog on Sunday night? Indianapolis went into the Kansas City and won outright. I think we could see the same thing happening.
Should be interesting. All right, so there you go. Those are our picks for the Golden Nugget. Texas Tech plus 11, Fresno State plus 3.5, Indiana laying 4 touchdowns, Arizona plus 6.5, Rams -3, Saints +1, Steelers +7. Moving over to the Westgate, we're going to use our three pro picks. We're taking the Rams -3 and the Saints +1.
Those are the lines for the Westgate, right?
Those are the lines for the Westgate also. So we're going to stick with those, and then I'm just not. You get me. Now you get me in my head here. Saints are plus 1.5 here.
Right,
baby.
that's what I thought. Okay, so there is an extra point there for the Saints.
There you go. Way to go. Way to go.
Got to make sure.
All right. Well, there you go. So Saints plus 1.5 here, which we like very, very much. Rams -3, and the Steelers are only getting 6.5.
Right, 6.5 in this one. Okay. All right, so the final 2 picks, how do you want to tackle this? You want to do yours first, or what do you want to do?
Ooh, do my first. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the Bengals plus 11.
What? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, my God.
Let me tell you, this game in particular,
yeah,
this will be the biggest mover by the time Sunday comes.
Where do you think the line goes?
9. I don't understand how Baltimore could be such a big favorite over anyone based on the way that they've played. And this is not one game. This is like several games. They don't look as good as they did.
Right?
Cincinnati could look like you know what for 3 quarters, and then they do what they did to Buffalo, came right back and covered that spread a couple of weeks ago. So again, you're getting value here. I don't think there's any way this line is 10 by the time Sunday comes. I think there's going to be some money going in on Cincinnati. The Bengals are not a team you ever want to side with at night. But during the day, Andy Dalton does seem to show up. Boyd looked pretty good, I thought. Yeah. Maybe this is a game that Mixon goes off. Lamar Jackson hasn't looked like himself since the first couple of games of the season. Malcolm Brown's not playing. And so in one of these deep leagues, I had to pick up Seth Roberts. What an embarrassment. That's how desperate I am at wide receiver. It's just not a great scenario for Baltimore. And now they're regressing a little bit, I think, offensively into what we thought they would be. And you're right, their defense has not shown a lot. I mean, imagine a game where you're getting 11.5 points and the score is 23-7 with 3 minutes left, and you feel like you've had the right side. You've had the Ravens the whole time they dominate, and then the Bengals score a late touchdown and they get that backdoor. I think that's a possibility in this one. Dalton's been a big backdoor guy, man. I could see that happening again in this game.
All right, well, so there you go. Bengals plus 11, and then final game here we're looking at.
I thought we have 2 more.
Oh, we got 1 more here. Rams, Saints, Steelers, Bengals, and finally.
Rams, Saints, Steelers, Bengals. Okay, gotcha.
Do you? Are you with me?
Yeah, I'll give a 6th pick after we're done.
Oh, well, what's your 6th pick? I might like it more than your 5th pick.
I like Tennessee.
I know you like Tennessee. That is your pick.
I like Tennessee.
I know you like Tennessee. So tell me why you like Tennessee.
Wait, let's get this straight here. What are our 5 picks for the Super Contest? Let's go through them.
The way you sent them to me, and we haven't submitted them yet.
Okay,
but here you go. Rams, Saints, Steelers, Bengals.
Rams, hold on. Saints, Steelers, Bengals, and
then you wanted the Titans plus 2.5.
Okay, so that's the game we are going with, right?
That's the game we're going with.
Okay, let me tell you why I'm taking the Titans this week. You know why I like the Titans?
Do you want to change your mind?
No. Okay. Let me tell you why I like them. I cannot find one person taking the Titans this week. None. I cannot find one person to give me one reason why Tennessee's going to win this game in Denver. None. I've looked everywhere. Any smart person, any prediction, every single person to a man says Denver is the easy win. It's a short line. They're playing at home. Tennessee goes to Denver and wins this game this week. Look, you cannot ignore what happened to Tennessee last week against Buffalo. Why are the Bills getting so much love after that game last week? Their kicker missed 4 field goals, excuse me. That guy hits 3 field goals, they win the game. I understand. Tennessee's not a good team. But they don't turn the ball over anymore. They've basically said to Marcus Mariota, we understand. You ain't going to be great. You are not going to be a great quarterback in this league. But the only way that we're going to win is if you don't throw picks. 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, but he takes 1 million sacks. I get it. What does Denver not do at all this season? Sack the quarterback. None. They're just not sacking the quarterback. As much as I like Denver at home in the early part of the season, I think that's gone at this point. How can the Broncos be favored over anyone? Are people just looking at the game and saying, oh, Denver at home? Oh, Denver played great last week. Against who? The Chargers? Really? Tennessee wins this game. And you know what they do every few weeks. They win a game they're not supposed to. This is the one. And again, I can't find anybody to agree with me. And that's how I know the pick is right.
Man, and I got to be honest with you. I love Tennessee's offensive line. And I think that this is a game where Derrick Henry eats on the ground. So listen, as much as I love Vic Fangio as a coach and a defensive-minded guy, his defense is still giving up over 150 rushing yards per game right now.
This is an easy. I'll tell you right now. This is no score in the first quarter. Denver kicks a field goal. Denver kicks another field goal. Tennessee scores a touchdown. It's 7-6. Denver kicks another field goal. It's 9-7. I mean, this is the kind of game it's going to be. I mean, I guess we should lean toward the under too if we had that. I mean, how can this game go over 40 points or 39 points? I mean, I just don't see it. I mean, I'd be dropping things if I thought that was the case.
And I'm doing it. I'm doing it right now.
Look at that. It's a real contrarian game this week to take Tennessee. One of the least picked teams every single week in the Super Contest are the Tennessee Titans. No one wants them, and they are not going to be highly picked in this contest. I don't think this week. We need to start making up some ground and taking some contrarian approach to this. So
that's what I want to hear.
Yeah,
that's what I.
So and another game that I kind of like a little bit this week is Kansas City. I don't understand like the big pushback from that game last week. I don't like Houston at all, so I do like the Chiefs, but I also don't want to fall in love with too many favorites. And already having the Rams as a favorite in there, to have Kansas City too. I'm more about underdogs for sure in the NFL. But I that's another line, Howard. I really just don't understand why Houston's getting so much credit going into this game. I was looking at that Seahawks over the Browns. Yeah, I like the Browns.
Seahawks giving 1 point.
I like the Browns.
Oh, do you? You like the Browns for what? For because they got their asses handed to them the week before? They're going to come back. That's what Baker Mayfield does?
Absolutely. They're going to win. Browns are going to win. Yeah, Browns will win. I mean, this is the NFL. When it looks too easy, Seattle only laying a point.
Side bet?
Oh, you want to do that? But you've been the Seattle whisperer. I'm not going against you.
Wait a minute.
This is one game I won't do. A lot of I will, but no, Seattle I don't have a good read on.
A gentleman bet. There it is.
I get my points though, right?
What's that? You get your 1 point.
No, is that what's the contest line? It's 1?
1.
Okay, fine. Deal.
You can have your 1 point. You know what you could do with that 1 point? Exactly.
Yeah, see, the problem is that you watch Monday night's game, they look like absolute trash. And this week, I will tell you right now, the best receiving week for any player in the NFL this week is going to be Odell Beckham Jr. Mark it down. It's going to happen.
Listen, I'm not going to say that Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield aren't going to connect. I'm just telling you that Seattle's had 10 days to prepare for this game. You've got Cleveland, who's had 6 days to prepare for this game. They look terrible. Both Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward are supposed to be out for this game as well.
Denzel Washington will be fine.
On that note, that's going to do it. Those are our Super Contest picks. Rams -3, Saints +1, Saints +1.5, Steelers +6.5, Titans +2.5, and we're taking the Bengals +11. How about them dogs, baby?
We need some dogs. We need to get the mojo back after last week. We didn't have a good week last week, but you guys have been hanging with us for a year and a half doing these live streams. We never have bad back-to-back weeks, and we're not going to do it this week. We're going to bounce back in a big way this week, but this is a good lesson in gambling. It's a good lesson in wagering. If you have a bankroll, this is why you use 5 to 10%, maybe 10's even high, maybe 5% of what you have on these games. You got to last the whole season. If you guys were using our picks after the first 4 or 5 weeks and going, wow, look at these guys in these contests. They're just kicking ass every single week. And you said, yo, I'm going to get aggressive this week. Well, guess what? You're reloading that account. That's not the way to go about it. And again, as a reminder, 1 week has nothing to do with the other. A lot of times it's a luck of the football. Last week, the Bears looked awful. I mean, who could a game like that? We'll end with this. The Bears last week against the Raiders. They go down 17-0. You think it's the worst pick in the world. They go up 21-17. The Raiders go for it on their own 10 with 5 minutes left. They don't get the first down. The guy fumbles. They give it back to the Bears. If they kick a field goal, they win. They overturn it. The Raiders get the ball back. They go and score. Like, that is what betting is in the NFL. It's one football. It's one overturned call. And so you can't get super worked up about these things. Like the Chiefs, taking the Chiefs last week against the Colts was a bad pick. A road team went in and won outright. You got to just own that, right? Like Kansas State, a team -2 at home gets blown out. You just got to own your picks. But a lot of times this comes down to the final possession. And it comes down to the line within a point or two. And I don't think that we have been that far off on these. So I'm hopeful this week we get back on track.
I'm pretty sure we get back on track here. I like a lot of our picks.
And if not, I got to borrow some money.
Well, there you go. There you go. I got some loose change in one of these pockets somewhere.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for us here at the Wager Alarm live stream. Big thanks to our man, Matt Sells, for always stepping up for the production here. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.